Is the image we have of Jesus wrong? What we know about his true appearance may be far from reality. A mysterious letter, written by Pontius Pilate himself to the Roman Emperor Tiberius, describes impressive details about the Messiah's face and skin, details that were not mentioned in the scriptures. But that's not all. Pilate also revealed secrets about Jesus' miracles, his way of acting, his trial, crucifixion, and even his resurrection. What exactly did this Roman governor witness? And why did he feel compelled to report these events to the emperor? Before we begin, I want to invite you to check out our channel. Here, we explore mysteries, prophecies, and revelations that can change your view of history and the future. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss anything. Leave your like to support the channel, and share your opinions in the comments. Now let's get straight to the point. In his letter, Pilate begins by saying, "Something extraordinary happened in my province. So impressive that I feel the need to report to you. For these events may alter the fate of Rome. There are moments when I wonder if the gods themselves have turned against us." Since he took over the governance of Judea, Pilate felt that his life was surrounded by problems and conspiracies. Jerusalem was a rebellious city, where the tension between the Jewish leaders and the Romans grew every day. As soon as he arrived, he organized a grand banquet and invited the Tetrarch of Galilee, the temple priests, and the main local leaders. But to his surprise, no one showed up. This was a direct insult to the power of Rome. Days later, one of the temple princes visited him. With a serious look, he said that their religion forbade sitting at the table with Romans. But Pilate knew there was something deeper. The hostility was evident. The streets were buzzing with rumors. But one name stood out among the people's conversations. A man from Galilee, a teacher, a preacher who attracted crowds, and taught a new doctrine in the name of a god he said was his father. Pilate, intrigued, ordered his spies to find out more about this man. He needed to understand who this mysterious figure was that even made the temple priests tremble. What he discovered in the accounts of his informants was even more unbelievable than he had imagined. Who was that man? And why did his presence so deeply unsettle the rulers and religious leaders? At first, I thought this man was just another agitator, trying to incite the people against Rome. But soon I realized I was wrong. Unlike the religious leaders, Jesus did not seem to harbor hostility towards us. At times, his words even favored the Romans more than the Jews themselves. One day, while walking through the city, I saw a crowd gathered under the shade of a tree. In the center, a man spoke with serenity. I asked one of my guards who he was. The answer was immediate: Jesus of Nazareth. I didn't want to interrupt. I just observed and ordered Manlius, my most reliable informant, to infiltrate among the listeners. Manlius spoke Hebrew and was well acquainted with local customs. Upon returning, he brought something surprising. One of the rebels asked if it was right to pay taxes to Caesar. Jesus replied, "Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's and unto God what is God's." I have never heard such wise words, not even from the best philosophers of Rome. I understood that he was not a threat and granted him something rare in that land: freedom. I could imprison him, exile him, or even condemn him, but I preferred to let him go. This enraged the powerful Jews. They feared him, not for his strength, but for his words. "You are like whitewashed tombs, beautiful on the outside, but full of rot on the inside." These words spread quickly and incited hatred among the religious leaders. The Pharisees, priests, and rich conspired against him. Messages arrived at the praetorium warning me that something bad would happen to Jesus, for Jerusalem always eliminated those who declared themselves prophets. The temple leaders were preparing a petition for Caesar, trying to force me to act. The city was buzzing with tension. I needed to avoid an uprising. I sent a message to Jesus, summoning him to the praetorium. I wanted to hear your intentions from your own mouth. But what happened next changed everything. He came. I, Pontius Pilate, governor of Judea, am not a man easily impressed. My Roman and Spanish heritage has made me strong and indifferent to fear. But when Jesus entered the praetorium, something changed. I felt my body weigh down. My feet seemed glued to the ground. I had never experienced such a feeling in front of any man. The Nazarene walked slowly, and without saying a single word, his gaze said it all. There was a peace in him that contrasted with the tension of the city. For a moment, my mind got lost in thought. This man was not like the others. He did not exhibit arrogance, fear, or submission. He was serene. Finally, I broke the silence. Jesus of Nazareth, for 3 years you have had the freedom to teach. And I do not regret it. Your words are of great wisdom. I don't know if you've ever heard Socrates or Plato, but I realize that you surpassed them. I wanted to warn you, but your words have created enemies. Powerful and dangerous. Socrates was also a victim of those who could not bear the truth, and now they want his end. There was something I couldn't understand. How could a simple man evoke so much hatred? Jesus looked at me and responded with absolute calm. Governor, your words do not come from true wisdom. Mount Tabor does not stop in the middle of the valley. He follows the laws of God. Before the rose of Sharon blooms, the blood of the righteous will be shed. I felt a shiver run through my body. Your blood will not be shed, I asserted, disturbed. My intention was to protect him. I despised the Pharisees who plotted against him. You will find refuge here, in my praetorium, day and night. So for the first time he smiled. It was a serene smile, as if he knew something that no one else understood. When the time comes, there will be no refuge for the Son of Man, neither on the earth nor beneath it. The true refuge is in the heavens. His words were etched in my soul. I should have listened to him, but it was too late. Jesus pointed to the sky and said, "What the prophets have written will be fulfilled, young man." His words left me uneasy. "You are forcing me to turn my request into an order," I replied, trying to hide the fear. "The security of this province demands it. Be more cautious." Jesus remained calm. "Prince of Earth, I did not come to bring destruction, but peace and love. What is happening is not because of me, but because of those who do not accept the truth." His eyes seemed to see beyond time. "You can't stop the victim from being taken to the altar." Saying this, he moved away like a shadow disappearing on the horizon. I felt a strange relief, as his presence was overwhelming. The tension in Jerusalem was growing. The old King Herod, who hated Jesus, wanted to eliminate him, but feared losing prestige with Rome. During a visit to the praetorium, he asked me about the Nazarene. "He seems to me a wise man, nothing more. His teachings do not threaten Rome." Herod smiled mockingly and left. The Easter festival was approaching, and I knew it was a time of instability. Then the final blow came. Jerusalem roared with furious voices. A crowd, clearly manipulated by the religious leaders, cried out for blood. "Crucify him! Crucify him!" Spies reported that the temple's gold had been used to buy the people. The danger was real. I sent an urgent request for reinforcements to the governor of Syria. The response was cold. "There are no soldiers available." I was alone, without enough troops, without control over the city, without a way out. Chaos was taking over, and the Jewish leaders were pressuring me. Jesus was arrested on the false charge of rebellion, but the truth was different. The hatred came from 3 groups: the Herodians, who saw him as a threat to power; the Sadducees, who feared losing influence; and the Pharisees, consumed by envy. They were shouting, and I, governor of Judea, did not know that my decision would change the fate of the world. The Sadducees and Herodians hated Jesus, but they also despised Rome. They never forgave me for marching into the city with imperial banners. For them, my sacrilege was still unforgivable. Another conflict was also growing. When I suggested using part of the temple treasury for public works, the Pharisees opposed it fiercely. For them, more than a Roman, Jesus was the true enemy. He had unmasked them before the people. Besides these groups, there were the agitators, rebels who only needed a pretext to set Jerusalem on fire. The high priest Caiaphas, pretending to be submissive, sent Jesus to me, hoping that Rome would confirm the execution. But I didn't want that responsibility. Since Jesus was from Galilee, I sent him to Herod, the old ruler, with his false smile. Send him back to me, washing his hands of the matter. My palace has become a besieged fortress. Dozens of voices cried out for blood. Suddenly, a woman dressed in branches fell at my feet, tears streaming down her face. Governor, don't touch that man. He is sacred. Her eyes were filled with terror. Tonight I saw him walking on the waters, flying over the winds. The sea and the fish obeyed him. I saw the river from Mount Carmel stained with blood. The statues of Caesar were weeping. If you ignore your wife's warnings, a great misfortune awaits you. At the same moment, the pillars of the praetorium trembled. The soldiers made their way through the crowd, bringing Jesus before me. The commotion grew. Firmly, I faced the crowd. What do you want? Crucify him, they shouted. What's his crime? Blasphemy. He prophesied the destruction of the temple. He declared himself the Son of God, the King of the Jews. I took a deep breath. None of these accusations were enough to condemn him to death. But the deafening screams echoed through the praetorium. The walls trembled. The people were enraged. In the midst of chaos, only Jesus remained serene. After so many failed attempts to protect him, I made the only decision that seemed left. I suggested that Jesus be the prisoner released during the festival. But the crowd cried out for his crucifixion. I tried to argue. I pointed out that according to Jewish law itself, no trial could be concluded on the same day. An accused person had the right to appeal, and to witnesses in their defense. No execution should take place without a formal trial in the Sanhedrin. Nothing mattered. The response was unanimous. Crucify him. In desperation, I ordered Jesus to be scourged, hoping that this would calm the crowd. The blood was running down his back, but the crowd was not satisfied. They wanted to see him dead. So, I stood up before the people and made one last gesture. I asked for water and washed my hands. I am innocent of this man's blood. He is just. You who demand his death, take the blame. But my words were lost in the wind. The fate of the Nazarene was already sealed. I saw crowds dragging themselves through the streets of Jerusalem, driven by insatiable hatred. The roar of the mob was deafening, as if hell itself had been unleashed upon the city. The sky began to close in. The sun, which shone brightly at dawn, now seemed hidden by an unexpected darkness. The wind carried laments of despair from Golgotha. The clouds thickened, covering the city with a dark veil. Each breath of wind carried something beyond fear, a presence, an invisible weight that made me shudder. I, Pontius Pilate, governor of Rome, felt a chill down my spine. For the first time, I feared not men, but the gods. Jesus was being led to the cross, and the world would never be the same again. It is said that, in the face of the sudden darkness and the tremor of the earth, Dionysius, the patriarch, exclaimed, "Either the Creator is suffering, or the universe is falling apart." Egypt trembled, and an indescribable terror took hold of the city. Superstitious Jews fell to their knees, and among them Balthasar, a sage from Antioch and a close friend of Jesus, was found dead. No one knows if it was from shock or from pain. In the first hour of the night, restless, I hurriedly dressed and went down to the streets. The people, once consumed by the fury of the execution, now walked with their heads down. The blood still stained the steps of the praetorium, and a sense of emptiness hung in the air. Near Mount Golgotha, I saw soldiers exchanging murmurs and pointing to the sky as if they were waiting for a sign. Amidst the sepulchral silence, an elderly man, clad in heavy garments, appeared among the guards. His face was bathed in tears. "Who are you and what do you want?" I asked. "I am Joseph of Arimathea," he replied, his voice choked. "I came to ask for permission to take the body of Jesus of Nazareth." Even though I didn't understand why, I granted permission. I ordered a detachment of soldiers to accompany Joseph to ensure that the body was not violated. Days later, rumors swept Jerusalem. The tomb was empty. The people murmured that Jesus had fulfilled his promise to rise again. The streets, which had once witnessed his condemnation, now echoed the voices of his followers proclaiming that he was alive. I, Pontius Pilate, had witnessed the trial, the death, and now this new restlessness. The city would never be the same again. The day after Jesus' burial, a prince of the priests came to me, anxious and fearful. He believed that the disciples might steal the body and claim that the prophecy of the resurrection had been fulfilled. To avoid any disturbance, I ordered Captain Mark to reinforce the tomb's security, deploying a group of Jewish soldiers to guard the entrance. The night passed without incident, but at dawn, something inexplicable happened. Commander Ben Isham, in charge of surveillance, arrived at the praetorium with a pale face, visibly shaken. "The tomb, it's empty, sir." Silence hung in the air. The way he said those words indicated that something more than a simple robbery had taken place. He began to relate what he had witnessed. Just before the fourth vigil, a soft light illuminated the tomb. At first I thought it was women coming to mourn, but the light grew, and then I saw shapes, faces, not like those of the living, but not like those of the dead either. His eyes were glazed, as if he was still watching the scene. And then, sir, I heard a sound, like a heavenly choir, a melody I've never heard before. A strong wind rose up, and the earth shook as if something was emerging from the depths. I tried to move, but my body felt heavy. I felt weak, and then I lost consciousness. The room fell silent. The other soldiers who were present confirmed his version, describing the same intense light and the seismic tremor. "And when did you wake up?" I asked. It was already daylight and the tomb was open. The stone had been removed. Their answer made no sense. How could a whole group of guards be taken down at the same time? How could such a large stone have been removed without human effort? Then came the most disturbing part. The priests paid us to tell them that the disciples stole the body while we were sleeping. I leaned back against the throne, feeling a shiver run down my spine. If that was true, we weren't just dealing with a simple crucified prisoner. Something much bigger had happened that early morning. The tomb was empty, and deep down I knew that man was not ordinary. As I reflected on everything I had witnessed, I came to a disturbing conclusion. Jesus was no ordinary man. Among those who followed him, and even among his staunchest enemies, there was a consensus. He possessed a mastery over nature and the elements that defied any logical explanation. He was said to turn water into wine, heal the sick with just a touch, bring the dead back to life, and even control the winds and waters. If all this was true, and many swore it was, then how could I judge him as a simple criminal? At the moment of his death, a phrase echoed in the air. Truly, this was the Son of God. But who really was Jesus? Pontius Pilate, the man who came face to face with him at his trial, left a surprising account of his appearance. He was not like the Jews of the time. Something in his countenance aroused a natural reverence. Her hair, slightly golden, fell softly over her shoulders, a subtle shine reflecting the light in an almost mystical way. Her eyes were her most striking feature, intense and penetrating, as if they saw beyond the flesh, beyond the soul. Some said they changed tone, oscillating between a deep blue and an indescribable glow, depending on the light and the emotion of the moment. His face was serene, conveying an unshakable peace. There was strength there, but no aggression, authority, but no arrogance. Her presence was both humble and powerful, dominating any environment without having to raise her voice. His skin was clear, but marked by the sun and the wind, showing the time spent outdoors, preaching to crowds or walking long distances. He didn't wear ornaments or luxurious clothes. On the contrary, his clothes were simple but impeccably cared for, reflecting the essence of his message, material detachment, purity, and purpose. And yet, even without a crown or riches, his appearance inspired more respect than any emperor I've ever met. Is this the man I delivered to the crowd? Now, noble sovereign, I report these events for you to judge for yourself. I know that my decision will be remembered for eternity, and history may condemn me. But within me, a disturbing doubt remains. Have I condemned a celestial being?